Let me ask you something. Why is it that you'll spend hours scrolling through TikTok learning how to get abs in 6 weeks or how to make a side hustle selling AI generated stickers on Etsy, but you'll never spend 5 minutes learning how to actually love? Be honest. You've got a whole folder of relationship memes saved, but you still can't talk to your partner without turning it into a therapy session they didn't sign up for. You know how to order DoorDash at 2 a.m., but not how to apologize without throwing in a passive-aggressive, sorry you feel that way. Here's the truth you don't want to face. Most of us are emotionally illiterate. We don't know what love is. We confuse it with validation, with sex, with good vibes only Instagram quotes, and then we wonder why every relationship feels like a slow-motion car crash. The book we're digging into today is all about love. New Visions by the legendary cultural critic, feminist theorist, and activist Bell Hooks. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another self-help sermon telling me to just open my heart, let me stop you. This isn't that. Hooks wasn't just a writer, she was a force of nature. Born Gloria Jean Watkins in 1952, she adopted the pen name Bell Hooks to honor her grandmother and to make sure attention stayed on her ideas, not her identity. Her entire life's work confronted patriarchy, racism, sexism, and all the comfortable lies people use to keep from changing. And with All About Love, she turned her sharp gaze to the subject we're all obsessed with but terrified to face, love. This isn't a feel-good Hallmark card about soulmates. This is a book that slaps you in the face and says, you don't know what love is, and your ignorance is destroying not just your relationships, but your community, your politics, your entire damn life. And before we move forward, here's a quick disclaimer. This video falls under the Fair Use Act. It's for educational purposes only. I'm not here to just rehash the book. I'm here to break it down, call out the hypocrisy we all live in, and show you how Hooks' ideas expose the gap between what we say about love and how we actually live. So, buckle up, because this isn't going to be cozy. If you've been lying to yourself about love, and trust me, you have, you're about to get uncomfortable, and that's exactly the point. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. Grace and clarity, naming the unseen. You ever notice how people can talk for 3 hours about Netflix shows they binge or argue online about Marvel versus DC, but when it comes to love, the one thing every single one of us claims to want, they go mute? It's like trying to ask someone about their bank balance. All of a sudden it's awkward, vague, uncomfortable, and that's the problem, silence. We don't talk about love because deep down we don't know what it is. We know what attraction feels like. We know what lust feels like. We know what validation from likes on Instagram feels like. But love? No. Most of us are winging it, hoping it works out like some cosmic accident. Bell Hooks throws dynamite into that silence. She starts by saying what no one wants to admit, that we live in a culture that has made lovelessness normal. Not just normal, but celebrated. Think about it. The biggest hit songs in the world either glamorize toxic relationships or dismiss love as pointless. Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do With It wasn't just a song, it was a cultural anthem of cynicism. Whole generations now joke about being dead inside as if that's a personality trait. And when people do dare to talk about love, they don't mean love, they mean cathexis. What Hooks calls that emotional investment we mistake for the real thing. You know the drill. You're obsessed with someone. You can't stop thinking about them. You feel high when they text you back, and then you swear that's love. But it's not. That's attachment. That's your brain on dopamine. Real love isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Hooks points out that we don't even have a shared definition of love, and that's why we keep screwing it up. Dictionaries reduce it to a strong affection, which is like describing hunger as a craving for food. Technically true, but totally useless if you're starving. So she leans on Emma Scott Peck's definition. Love is the will to nurture your own or another's spiritual growth. Not feelings, not butterflies, not Netflix and chill. Will, choice, growth. Let that sink in. If you're neglecting someone, lying to them, abusing them, stop calling it love. It's not. Love and abuse cannot coexist. And yeah, I know someone's already forming the excuse, but my dad beat me and said he loved me, so maybe love can be complicated. No, stop romanticizing trauma. Abuse is not love in disguise, it's the absence of it. Now here's where this gets even more uncomfortable. Hooks forces us to face the reality that most of us grew up in homes where care was mistaken for love. Your parents put food on the table, bought you clothes, maybe even hugged you sometimes, and then they turned around and shamed you, mocked you, punished you with phrases like, "This hurts me more than it hurts you." And we learned to rationalize it. Well, they cared, so it must have been love. But if we're honest, it wasn't. It was dysfunctional care. And the dysfunction is not the soil where love grows. Think about your adult relationships. How many times have you stayed with someone who belittled you, cheated, neglected you, but you justified it by saying, "They love me, they're just hurt." No, they don't. You're just recycling the same lie you were fed as a child. The real tragedy is that because nobody gave us a working definition of love, we keep passing on the same mess. Instead of learning to nurture growth, we reduce love to good feelings. If the sex is good, if the vibe is right, if they buy you flowers, we call it love. But growth, accountability, respect, we don't even put those on the list, which is why people can say, "I love you," while actively destroying you. The word has been hollowed out. We don't protect it. We let it mean everything and nothing. And here's the most brutal part of Hooks' argument. If you actually adopt a definition of love that requires growth, you will have to admit that you've never really loved the way you thought you did. That's terrifying. It means facing the void. It means acknowledging that most of your relationships, romantic, familial, even friendships, were built on counterfeit love. But that's the only way forward. If you keep clinging to sloppy definitions, you'll keep living sloppy lives, mistaking chaos for connection and calling it destiny. Love begins when silence ends. When we stop pretending we don't know what's missing. When we stop excusing harm because we're too afraid to admit we've never known the real thing. The first step is clarity, naming it, defining it, refusing to let the word be hijacked by abuse, by dysfunction, by empty gestures. If love is the will to nurture growth, then ask yourself, who are you nurturing? Who's nurturing you? If you don't have an answer, maybe it's time to admit you haven't been practicing love at all. Key takeaway, until we define love clearly, we will keep mistaking care, attention, or even abuse for the real thing. Love is not a feeling, it's a deliberate choice to nurture growth. And if that's not happening, it isn't love. Favorite quote, "Love is as love does." Love is an act of will, namely, both an intention and an action. Justice and honesty, lessons we carry, truths we fear. Here's a question most people never ask themselves. When did you first learn what love meant? Not when you first fell in love, but when you first learned the rules. Think about it. Every single one of us was handed a script about love before we could even spell the word. And that script, for most of us, it was garbage. Some of us were told love is obedience. Do what I say because I love you. Some of us were told love is pain. This hurts me more than it hurts you. And some of us were spoiled into thinking love is indulgence. You can do no wrong. You're perfect just as you are. Different households, same dysfunction. We were all being taught distorted definitions of love. And the tragedy is, we grew up carrying those lessons straight into our adult relationships. Bell Hooks doesn't sugarcoat this. She says, childhood is where we learn love, or the lack of it. When parents punish harshly but call it love, kids grow up thinking abuse and love can coexist. When parents overindulge but never discipline, kids grow up believing love is about getting your way. Either way, we learn that love is about feelings, rewards, punishments, not about growth. And when you carry that into adulthood, you end up with broken marriages, manipulative relationships, and a generation of people too damaged to distinguish care from control. Now let's get brutally honest. Most of us don't want to confront this. We'd rather cling to the fairy tale that my parents loved me, they just had a funny way of showing it. But Hooks calls BS on that. If your so-called love was mixed with neglect, humiliation, or cruelty, then it wasn't love. Care, maybe. Affection, sometimes. But love, no, because love nurtures growth and abuse stunts it. It's like trying to convince yourself a glass of salt water quenches thirst. It doesn't, it poisons. And here's where honesty comes in, because even as adults, we still run from the truth. We claim we want love, but we lie constantly about what we feel, about what we need, about who we are. We lie to ourselves when we call obsession love. We lie to others when we fake commitment to avoid being alone. We lie in relationships because we think honesty will ruin things, but dishonesty always ruins them faster. Hooks warns us, without honesty, love cannot survive. And yet honesty terrifies us more than heartbreak. We'd rather stay in relationships built on illusions than face the truth that maybe, just maybe, we've never known real love. Think about how this plays out every day. You know those couples who look picture perfect on Instagram, vacations, matching outfits, my best friend forever captions, and then they're fighting off camera, cheating, or just emotionally dead. That's what happens when you trade honesty for appearances. And you probably do it too. You tell people you're fine when you're breaking down inside. You stay with partners who treat you like an option because leaving would force you to admit you deserve better. You perform relationships instead of living them, and then wonder why they collapse. Hooks is daring us to do something terrifying, admit the truth, admit that many of us weren't loved well in childhood, admit that we've been recycling those wounds in our adult lives, admit that without radical honesty about our pain, our needs, our failures, we'll never know love at all. And that's why people avoid this book, because it doesn't let you hide behind excuses. It looks you in the eye and says, you're lying, and your lies are killing your chance at love. Here's the kicker. Honesty isn't just about telling the truth to others, it's about facing yourself. And most of us are cowards. We'd rather keep scrolling, keep numbing, keep blaming other people, instead of looking in the mirror and asking, am I the one sabotaging love because I won't tell the truth? And if the answer is yes, will I do anything about it? Or will I keep playing dumb until it's too late? Key takeaway. Childhood teaches us warped definitions of love, and only radical honesty, first with ourselves, then with others, can free us from repeating those same destructive patterns. Without honesty, love is impossible. Favorite quote, when we lie to ourselves, we waste the energy it takes to love. Commitment and spirituality anchored in the infinite. Let's get real for a second. Most of you treat love like a weekend hobby, something you pick up when you're bored, drop when it gets hard, and dust off again when you feel lonely. That's not love, that's Netflix. Love isn't supposed to be convenient. It isn't supposed to bend around your schedule. Love is commitment, and that word alone sends people running because commitment forces you to face the ugliest truth about yourself. You're selfish. You want the rewards of love without the responsibility of love. You want someone to adore you, heal you, tolerate your baggage, but when it's time to show up for them, suddenly you're just not in the right place emotionally. That's cowardice dressed up as self-care. Hooks calls out this exact sickness. She says most people want the fantasy of love but not the work of it. Commitment is where fantasy dies and real love begins. It's not just about sticking around when things are easy, it's about saying, I choose this, I choose you. I choose to grow, even when it's inconvenient, even when I'm tired, even when everything in me wants to run. And that scares us because in a culture obsessed with freedom and individuality, commitment feels like a prison. But the truth is, without commitment, there is no love. Only a string of temporary flings we keep rebranding as learning experiences. Now here's the uncomfortable twist. Commitment isn't just to other people, it's also to yourself, and beyond that, to something greater than yourself. Hooks makes it clear. Love has always had a spiritual dimension. She isn't talking about organized religion or Sunday sermons. She's talking about the recognition that love is bigger than lust, bigger than ego, bigger than your little checklist of relationship goals. It's about aligning with something transcendent, something infinite. And if that word spiritual makes you squirm, good. It means you've been taught to separate love from depth, to treat it like a lifestyle accessory instead of a divine practice. Think about the mess this creates. People jump into relationships without any anchor, without any sense of the sacred, and then act surprised when everything collapses the first time things get hard. It's like building a skyscraper without a foundation. Of course it's going to fall. Love without commitment, love without reverence, is just infatuation with better branding. And yet, this is the game we keep playing. We want instant gratification, swipe right love, dopamine hits disguised as connection. And when it fails, we blame the other person. We say, they weren't the one. No, you weren't the one, because you never brought your full self to the table. Here's the truth you don't want to face. If you are not committed to love as a principle, not just as a feeling, then you will sabotage every relationship you enter. If you are not grounded in a belief that love requires devotion, discipline, and yes, spirituality, then you will keep chasing highs and calling them destiny. And when it falls apart, you'll just repeat the cycle with someone new until you're too numb or too old to keep pretending. Hooks challenges us to see love not as a possession, but as a path. To treat it as a practice of the soul, something that requires intention, faith, and yes, reverence. And that's where spirituality comes in, because when you see love as divine, you stop treating people as disposable. You stop running when it gets hard. You stop mistaking pleasure for purpose. Spirituality reminds us that love is not about control, not about ego, not about winning. It's about surrender, and surrender is the last thing most of us are willing to do. You want proof? Look at how people talk about relationships today. Everyone wants leverage. Everyone wants the upper hand. Everyone's terrified of being too vulnerable. But love without vulnerability is a business deal, and no one goes to their grave remembering the terms of their contracts. They remember who they bled for, who they prayed for, who they grew with. That's what Hooks is trying to burn into our skulls. That love isn't a consumer product, it's a spiritual discipline, and until you embrace that, you're not loving, you're just trading comfort for time. Key takeaway: love isn't sustainable without commitment and reverence. It's not just about staying with someone, it's about grounding yourself in a spiritual ethic that treats love as sacred work, not a disposable pastime. Favorite quote: to love well is the task in all meaningful relationships, not just romantic bonds. Values and greed, the crossroads of the heart. Let's cut the crap. You can't say you want love while secretly worshipping greed. You can't claim to build deep relationships when your actual loyalty is to money, status, or your own ego. And yet, that's the world we live in. People go on dating apps with "must make 6 figures" in their bio, but then turn around and cry that no one loves them for who they are. Please. If your values are dictated by greed, then what you're looking for isn't love. It's a business arrangement. And the truth? Most of us are more comfortable with transactions than transformation because it's easier to buy attention than to earn love. Bell Hooks saw this poison for what it is, a culture that preaches consumerism while pretending it wants connection. We're trained from childhood to equate worth with wealth. Parents brag about their kids' grades, trophies, and future careers, but rarely about their kindness or integrity. So we grow up chasing status instead of values. And what happens when that mindset collides with love? Disaster. Relationships collapse because there's no shared vision, no grounding principles. People want to be adored, but don't want to live by any ethic that makes adoration possible. Here's the thing, values are not optional, they're the blueprint of love. Without them, you're just improvising, building a house with no foundation. And don't lie, you already know this. You've seen couples implode because their values didn't align. One person wants loyalty, the other wants freedom. One believes in honesty, the other believes in white lies. One wants a partner, the other wants a servant. No matter how much chemistry they had, it was doomed. Why? Because love without shared values is like trying to swim without water. It's not happening. Hooks goes further. Greed doesn't just kill love, it replaces it. Look at how people confuse desire with devotion. They chase someone not because they want to nurture growth, but because they want to possess them. They measure affection by what they get out of it, not what they give. That's greed disguised as love, and it's everywhere. The Instagram couple that flaunts vacations but can't stand each other in private. The partner who buys gifts after every fight but never changes their behavior. The parents who shower kids with toys instead of time. Greed loves appearances, but it has no depth. And when you build relationships on greed, don't act shocked when they collapse the second the supply runs out. Now here's where I'm going to confront you directly. You say you want love, but do your actions reflect values or greed? When you're in a relationship, are you thinking about how to nurture your partner's growth, or are you keeping score? Are you trying to build something that lasts, or are you chasing the next dopamine hit, the next upgrade, the next shiny distraction? Most people today are in love with the idea of being loved, not with the discipline it takes to love someone else. And until you face that, your relationships will keep failing in the exact same ways. Let me make this even more uncomfortable. Some of you are selling out your capacity for love because you think greed will save you. You stay in jobs that kill your soul because they pay well. You date people you don't respect because they look good on paper. You compromise your values to avoid loneliness, then wonder why you feel empty even when you're not alone. That's what happens when greed rules. It strips meaning out of life, and without meaning, love can't survive. Hooks is clear. Love demands a value system grounded in care, respect, responsibility, trust, and commitment. Anything less is counterfeit, and if that sounds demanding, it's because it is. Love isn't cheap, it isn't easy, it isn't for sale, but if you want the real thing, you have to build your life around values that sustain it, not around greed that destroys it. Otherwise, you'll spend your whole life mistaking possession for love and die wondering why you never felt whole. Key takeaway: love cannot coexist with greed. Without a foundation of values, care, respect, honesty, responsibility, relationships are doomed to collapse into transactions and the power plays. Favorite quote: there can be no love without justice. Community and mutuality, building a world where love lives. Here's the lie you've been sold: that love is just between you and your partner, a private little island where no one else matters. That's the Hollywood fantasy, two people against the world. But reality, that's the quickest way to suffocate love. Because love is not a two-person prison. It's not built in isolation. It's built in community. And most of you are failing at love because you're trying to do it in a vacuum while ignoring the fact that no relationship survives without the oxygen of wider connection. Bell Hooks is ruthless about this. Our culture glorifies individualism, but love withers in individualism. We act like me and my boo is enough. But if the only person you practice love with is your romantic partner, what you've built is dependency, not love. That's why so many relationships feel like war zones, two people draining each other dry because they don't know how to live in a network of care beyond the couple bubble. Real love expands. It touches friends, family, neighbors, strangers. It's communal, political, spiritual. If your so-called love makes you smaller, more isolated, more paranoid, then it isn't love. It's control with pretty branding. And don't pretend you haven't seen this. People ditch their friends the second they get into a relationship, as if their partner is supposed to replace an entire village. Then, when the relationship tanks, they come crawling back crying, "I feel so alone." Of course you do. You burned your bridges in the name of romance. That's not love, that's self-sabotage. Hooks insists that community love matters because it teaches us mutuality, the understanding that love is about give and take, not domination. Mutuality means you're not keeping score, not trying to control, not demanding to be the center of someone's universe. It means partnership, reciprocity, balance. And let's be honest, you hate that word balance because it forces you to admit that you're not the star of the show. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't want mutuality, they want power. They want a partner who bends, who serves, who sacrifices more. That's why so many relationships implode. You can't build love on exploitation. You can't demand equality in theory, but refuse to practice it in daily life. If you're always taking but never giving, always speaking but never listening, always needing but never nurturing, you're not in love. You're in domination, and domination kills love faster than infidelity ever could. Let's talk about community on a bigger scale. Hooks argues that lovelessness isn't just personal, it's political. We live in a culture of domination, where capitalism, patriarchy, and racism all thrive on the absence of love. Think about it. Greed wins when we don't care about each other. Violence wins when we stop seeing each other as human. Oppression wins when we refuse to imagine a world grounded in care and justice. If love is only private, then it's powerless. But when love becomes a communal ethic, it has the power to dismantle systems. That's why leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of love not as sentimental mush, but as a revolutionary force. Now let me call you out directly. You say you want love, but do you practice it outside your relationship? Do you love your friends, or do you ghost them when they're inconvenient? Do you love your neighbors, or do you only care when they're quiet and keep their lawn neat? Do you love strangers, or do you scroll past suffering because it doesn't directly affect you? Don't tell me you're capable of deep, transformative love with a partner if you can't even show up with mutual respect and care in the smallest social interactions. If your love stops at your front door, it isn't love. It's self-indulgence. Here's the paradox. Love feels personal, but it only thrives when it's communal. The more you practice it in community, the stronger it becomes in intimacy. The more you share it beyond your private bubble, the more resilient it becomes when intimacy gets hard. Love is not about closing off the world, it's about opening to it. Until you get that, you'll keep confusing possession for partnership, domination for devotion, and loneliness for loyalty. Key takeaway: love cannot survive in isolation. It thrives in community and mutuality, where balance, reciprocity, and shared responsibility replace domination and isolation. Without community, love collapses into control. Favorite quote: to truly love, we must learn to mix various ingredients: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, as well as honest and open communication. Romance and loss, the sweetness and the shattering. Let's be brutally honest, most of you don't want love. You want the high of romance. You want the butterflies, the dopamine rush, the movie montage where everything feels effortless. You don't want partnership, you want fireworks. And fireworks are beautiful, but you know what else they do? They burn out, fast. Then you're left in the dark wondering why your soulmate turned into a stranger. But here's the part you don't like hearing. Romance is easy, love is hard. Romance makes you feel special, love makes you responsible. Romance is about desire, love is about devotion. That's why people chase romance like addicts, but run from love like cowards. Bell Hooks drags this truth out into the light. She argues that we've been conditioned to confuse romance with love, and it's killing our relationships. Popular culture sells romance as the ultimate goal, but romance without commitment, honesty, and care is just lust with a soundtrack. That's why so many couples think passion equals permanence. But as Hooks makes clear, love doesn't always feel like a roller coaster. It often looks like showing up day after day with patience, discipline, and integrity. And here's the kicker: most of you would rather chase another high than sit in the boring daily work of nurturing growth. Now, let's talk about the part we all avoid: loss. Because love isn't just sweetness, it's shattering too. Every love you have, no matter how beautiful, comes with the guarantee of loss. Breakups, betrayals, death. Loss is baked into the recipe. And yet our culture does everything possible to avoid grieving. We numb ourselves with distractions, jump into rebound relationships, drown in work, anything but sit with the pain. But Hooks insists that loss is not the enemy, it's the teacher. Loss strips us of illusions. Loss forces us to grow in ways comfort never could. You don't want to hear that because grief feels unbearable. But pretending you can love without risking loss is like pretending you can swim without ever touching the water. Think about your own life. Maybe you had a romance that felt like destiny. You swore you'd never love like that again. And when it ended, you felt destroyed. You told yourself you'd never open up again, that the pain wasn't worth it. But here's the truth. The pain wasn't a sign that love failed. It was proof that love mattered. It changed you. It stretched you. And if you let it, loss could refine you into someone capable of deeper, stronger, more honest love. But most of us don't let it. We wall off our hearts, hide behind cynicism, and call it wisdom. It's not wisdom, it's fear dressed up as maturity. Hooks reminds us that romance is fleeting, but love is expansive. Romance gets you in the door, but it can't keep you in the room. Love is what makes you stay, what makes you endure, what makes you risk again even after heartbreak. And loss, as brutal as it is, deepens our capacity to love if we face it head on instead of running. That's the paradox. Love gives us joy, but it also gives us grief. You can't have one without the other, and if you try to dodge the grief, you'll never taste the joy fully either. So ask yourself, are you addicted to romance, or are you ready for love? Are you running from loss, or are you willing to let it shape you? If all you want are the highs, don't be surprised when you keep ending up empty. If you keep avoiding grief, don't be shocked when your heart stays shallow. Love is sweetness, yes, but it's also shattering, and only those who face both will ever know its depth. Key takeaway: romance can ignite love, but it cannot sustain it. True love requires going beyond passion into commitment, and loss is not its failure, but its ultimate teacher. Facing grief with honesty deepens rather than destroys our capacity to love. Favorite quote: "To love well is the task in all meaningful relationships, not just romantic bonds." Healing and destiny, love's final revolution. Everybody loves the idea of healing until it requires them to stop being a victim. You want the badge of survivor without giving up the story that keeps you stuck. You tell everyone you're healing, but what you're really doing is hoarding your wounds like trophies, parading them around to justify why you're bitter, selfish, or afraid to love again. Healing doesn't work that way. Healing isn't a spa day or a self-care hashtag. Healing is war, and the battleground is your own heart. Bell Hooks tells us the most uncomfortable truth about healing. It's not optional if you want love. If you don't confront your trauma, if you don't face the lies you've carried, you will repeat them. You'll drag your pain into every relationship, infect every person who tries to love you, and then call it fate when everything falls apart. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let the past dictate your present. And until you do that, you're not loving, you're reenacting. And here's the kicker: healing is inseparable from destiny. You cannot talk about becoming who you're meant to be without talking about how love reshapes your life. Hooks points out that love has the power to rewire destiny because it redefines who you are. Every time you choose love over fear, you're rewriting your future. Every time you refuse to stay trapped in cycles of abuse, dishonesty, or domination, you're changing not only your life, but the lives of everyone around you. But most of you are too comfortable staying broken. You'd rather keep repeating the same toxic cycles and complain about bad luck than do the terrifying work of transformation. Think about your own life. You say you want love, but do you? Or do you want someone who will tolerate your damage without asking you to change? That's not love, that's enabling. Real love doesn't coddle your dysfunction, it calls you out of it. Real love says, I see who you are, and I see who you could be, and I won't let you settle for less. And that's why real love feels like a threat, because it requires you to stop hiding. It requires you to stop being comfortable in your wounds. Hooks is clear: healing through love is the final revolution, because a healed person doesn't just love differently, they live differently, they parent differently, they build communities differently, they show up in the world as creators, not destroyers. And destiny is nothing mystical. It's the long shadow of every choice you make. If you keep choosing fear, domination, and dishonesty, your destiny is small, predictable, and sad. But if you choose love, radical, messy, demanding love, you become something new. You become someone capable of shaping the future. Here's the most confrontational truth of all. If you die unhealed, if you die having never loved fully, it won't be because life cheated you. It will be because you refuse to stop cheating yourself. You had opportunities to grow, to face your wounds, to love beyond them, and you said no. And one day, when the excuses no longer matter, you'll realize destiny wasn't written in the stars. It was written in the choices you made every damn day. Healing is not just about you, it's about the generations after you. It's about the communities around you. It's about the people who will either inherit your wounds or your wisdom. That's the revolution Hooks is talking about. Love as the force that heals not just individuals, but entire worlds. And if that sounds lofty, it's only because you've been trained to settle for small, shallow love. You've been trained to accept mediocrity as destiny. But love, when practiced fully, refuses mediocrity. It insists on transformation. Key takeaway: healing is the doorway to love, and love is the path to destiny. Without healing, we recycle pain. With love, we rewrite the future, not just for ourselves, but for everyone touched by our lives. Favorite quote: love is our destiny. It is what we were created for. Without it, life is meaningless. Conclusion. So here's where we land. If you've been listening and still think love is some fluffy feeling you stumble into, you weren't paying attention. Love is clarity, it's justice, it's honesty, it's commitment, it's spirituality, it's values, it's the antidote to greed, the lifeblood of community, the balance of mutuality. It's the sweetness of romance, the devastation of loss, the raw power of healing, and the blueprint of destiny. Love is not a game, it's not a vibe, it's not optional, it's the one thing that actually matters, and the one thing most of you are still too afraid to practice. Look at your life. Be honest. How many of your relationships have been built on silence, dishonesty, convenience, or fear? How many times have you confused attention for love, control for care, or dependency for destiny? How many times have you claimed to want love while running from the discipline, the courage, the radical honesty it demands? Stop lying to yourself. If you don't change, you'll keep living the same loveless script over and over again until you die bitter and lonely. But here's the hope buried in the wreckage. Love can be learned. Love can be chosen. Love can be practiced like the most demanding art form of your life. Hooks didn't write this book to make you feel good. She wrote it to make you uncomfortable, to drag your excuses into the light, to show you that love is the only revolution worth fighting for. And if you felt even a flicker of truth in these words, don't just sit there nodding along. Do something. Practice honesty in your relationships. Build community instead of isolation. Choose values over greed. Stop chasing shallow romance and start learning the art of love that survives grief and grows through pain. Love is not for the weak, it's for the brave. And the question is simple: are you brave enough? This breakdown only scratches the surface. If you want the full fire of Bell Hooks' vision, buy All About Love, New Visions. Don't pirate it, don't just Google quotes, buy the damn book. Read it, wrestle with it, let it wreck you, let it change you. Because if you take it seriously, it will. So here's your final call. Stop scrolling, stop pretending, stop waiting for love to magically appear. Love is the work, the revolution, the destiny. Start now. And if you want more breakdowns that cut through the lies and hit you where it hurts, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And don't just watch, live it. Because the world doesn't need more cynics. It doesn't need more broken people pretending they're fine. It needs people who actually know how to love. So go get the book, go do the work, and I'll see you on the other side of comfort where real love begins.